Well, good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you here tonight for our town hall. This is about Lincoln in Quebec, and I live very close to there. Yesterday, I drove through that intersection 4 times. So I share your frustration and I share your pain, but I hope at the end of this hour, you're going to understand the good news that we have to tell you about this intersection. You see, Highlands Ranch began to be built in 1980. And I was a state trooper here, and I actually remember covering a fatal accident at the intersection of Lincoln and Quebec in 1989. And there was that huge post office there, but there really wasn't anything else around there. And I remember thinking, who would build something here? And yet here we are 40 years later, and that concrete has seen the end of its useful life. And that's why that entire intersection is being ripped up, relayed with 9 inches of concrete. And then when this is all over, we are going to have a beautiful intersection there that hopefully we can drive on for 50 years. So the pain that we're going through now, I hope will be worth it. And I hope at the end of this meeting, when you hear from the people that are in charge of this project, you'll understand why we're doing what we're doing. You know, there's 32,000 cars a day that go through that intersection. And do y'all remember last month when that bridge in Baltimore got hit and it's out of commission? That bridge used, there were 32,000 cars a day that traversed that bridge. So that just gives you some comparison of the number of cars that drive through that intersection at Lincoln in Quebec. Commissioner Teal?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Well, tonight we're here to answer any questions that you have, and more specifically, we're here to listen to your comments as well. If you're joining us on the phone, press star 3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question or tell us your feedback. For those online, please submit your question or feedback into the dialog box, and our moderator will read that aloud. For those of you with us in the room, we have 2 podiums, one to each side. To ask a question and provide feedback, please come up to the podium. We'll form a line and get your comments as quickly as we can. Back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. So this is our 79th live town hall because we believe it's really important to have forums where we can hear from you. And that's the purpose of being here tonight. One thing that we did make a decision on last month is to compress the schedule of how long this project is going to take. Originally, it was supposed to end the middle of October because we had told the contractor they could only work from 8:30 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon because we thought that would be that would facilitate traffic more beneficially for you. But once we got started and heard the complaints and lived through it, frankly, we decided we just needed to rip that Band-Aid off and get this project done. So the contractor starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes ending at 7 o'clock at night, but he's been told he can go until 9 o'clock at night. And he also doesn't need to take those construction barrels down every night and put them back up every morning because that gives him 2 more hours a day that he can work on getting this project done. We have offered the contractor $8,800 a day that he gets that contract done earlier than the middle of October. We're hoping to have this done before school starts in August. So I just want you to know the financial commitments that we have made to try and speed up this project and get it done right, but get it done more quickly. Roger?
Thank you, commissioners. As both commissioners mentioned, we want to hear from you. So if you're in the room now and want to ask a question, make a comment, please start working your way up to a podium. To ask a question from the phone, press star 3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. When it's your turn, I'll call your name and ask you to repeat the question for our live audience. Again, to ask a question online, enter it into the dialog box, and I'll read it aloud when the time comes. So again, if you're here in the room, please work your way up to the podium, and we're asking you to keep your comments to 2 minutes so that we can get to as many people in as possible. And keep in mind that we'll also ask you to limit your questions to 1 question or comment at a time. So let's go back to Commissioner Thomas, and we'll start with a question here in the hearing room.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, sir. Do you have a question?
Yes, a question, comment, whatever. We live in the Settlers Village, the townhomes, which are probably at the northwest corner of Quebec and University, which are probably the most affected neighborhood because we're the only neighborhood right on that corner. And we have it's a small neighborhood with two entrances, one on University and one on Quebec. And they are both right smack in the middle of the construction zone. And often we have trouble getting out of the neighborhood and more trouble getting back in. But my question has to do with we have a lot of cars coming through our little townhouse neighborhood, cutting the corner. They either are trying to turn from Quebec right onto University or from University left onto Quebec. They're in traffic. And so we have this large stream of cars coming through our neighborhood that, they don't live there. They're just cutting through. And some of them go too fast, and it's just like increase the traffic by fivefold. Is there anything that can be done to kind of discourage that? Like put up, I mean, there's a tiny little sign that's been there for years about no through traffic or something, but it's about 4 inches tall and is down at the ground. Is there anything that can be done putting up larger signs saying that there's no through traffic, it's local traffic only to try to cut that down some?
So I'll ask our traffic engineers, Dan or Z.
So one thing that's going to happen fairly soon is the phasing is actually going to impact the ability of drivers to make that turn, particularly if you're going eastbound on University, because we're about to shift traffic over in the next couple weeks and split the traffic. So the construction is in the middle. So the eastbounders won't be able to make that turn. So that will help with that.
Will we be able to get into our
Well,
neighborhood?
and that's the challenge for you is you still have to take that roundabout route during that phase of work. You'll have to
So we won't be able to enter the neighborhood from University?
from University. You'll have to go through the intersection, and
Well-
so that's part of the strategy of speeding it up is to minimize that as much as possible. We will take a look at the signage as well.
Yeah.
Try and get some more signs up about local access. Try and get people to avoid taking that route, but people are going to do it. If they can get in and similar to the other side of the intersection, anything we do is going to block you and your neighbors as well. So it is a balance.
Yeah, but I mean, a sign might discourage some people, which would help. And then there's the people a lot of the people coming through are not making the left-hand turn from University into our neighborhood. They're making the right-hand turn on Quebec, which is a very easy turn to make. And so, like it would help to have a sign there, or that's where a lot of the traffic coming through is.
Yeah, and it is a little bit of a incremental thing. We can't keep everybody from making that turn, but if we can keep some of them from making that turn, that definitely will improve.
One
the
other quick thing.
situation.
The other thing that's
We need to go to
okay.
the next person. Thank you so much.
I'm also going to ask Captain Millen to speak about this because I had someone ask me if we would put up some kind of radar vans or something like that. So I'd like the sheriff's office to address that question.
Yes, we do not have speed radar vans or photo radar in Douglas County. However, we do have speed trailers that we can set up there, and that would give us some data that we can go back for traffic enforcement and the peak travel times and take a look at that with our traffic section. So I'd be glad to get that set up.
Thank you. We'll go to this side of the room.
Hi, I have a question. So I'm trying to understand why eastbound University, when you are turning right to go southbound, there is no longer going to be a designated turn lane. And that is a huge concern. I feel like it's going to turn into basically University turning on a wildcat, where you have people stopping then you have people turning right, and you're going to have crash after crash after crash because people aren't paying attention. And every other part of that intersection has a designated turn lane. And so I'm trying to understand why that is the case, especially when the post office is the government property. Can you explain that?
So your last point is well taken. The post office is federal government property.
Okay.
So it's nearly impossible for us to take property from them. In fact, I would say it is impossible. And for several years, the county had planned on a free right turn there to be built over on post office property. Realized that there was no chance we were going to get enough property to do that. So when we kicked off this project, we had a consultant study the movements, and they modeled the performance and recognized that there was very limited opportunities to improve capacity. So they made 3 significant changes. The eastbound, what used to be a right turn only became a through right. We have to move the signal out of the way to do that, recognizing, as you did, that there does create a situation there when that happens. Westbound, we're able to add an extra through lane there as well, through right. And then probably the most significant improvement is going to be the southbound to westbound movement, where we're going to have a double turn lane, but it will have a separate signal because it'll be the median will be there, and we need a signal to make sure that people that are trying to walk across are safe in that. So hopefully that answers your questions. It's
a big bummer.
tight intersection.
Really disappointing.
Obtaining the property from the post office was just not happening.
Okay, wish you all luck in the hopefully not accidents. Thanks.
Sir?
I also live in Settlers Village, and when we're coming out on the Quebec side, trying to go south, the timing of the lights are not synchronized at all. So maybe one car can come out of Settlers Village and turn right or turn left, because the lights at Quebec and Lincoln and University are red, and this light now is green, and we're all sitting there, nobody can move. Is there any way to have someone manually synchronize those lights so that it doesn't back up all the way back to King Soopers?
So we very much appreciate that feedback, sir. And I'll take that back to our traffic operations engineer, Danny Montoya. And he's done a great job so far with the capacity and the timing in the intersection of University and Quebec. We're running about a 3-minute cycle there, which is quite a bit longer than we would typically. And the idea behind doing that is we reduce the amount of lost time, either startup lost time or all red time at the end of a cycle. So we're able to get a little bit more capacity through an operational benefit by having that long cycle. But I'll certainly have him look at what's called the offset, which is when the other signals signal green, and see if we can improve that for you.
Yes, sir.
Hello. See, I live on Mountain Brush Circle. And like a week and a half or so ago, the left turn lane off of Quebec was closed. So first of all, I found it very ironic that I now have to cut through somebody else's neighborhood to get to my neighborhood. But also, it really has not stopped anybody except me from turning in there. They either just block traffic on Quebec in the through lane, or they cut through the cones and drive the wrong way down the road. Because a couple days ago, I came very, very close to having a head-on collision. Because I turned right out of Mountain Brush onto Quebec, and I wasn't expecting someone to be driving down the wrong side of the road. So I say it really hasn't accomplished what you may have thought it was going to accomplish, because people are still turning in there. So if you can consider to reopen that back up, that would be great.
So I appreciate that. So the primary reason we closed it, and we have had feedback from the neighborhood asking us to close it, but the real reason we closed it right there is that was where the start of the construction traffic control was, and people were splitting and getting over in that lane, I think, and being forced to take that movement because they couldn't move forward. So we extended the traffic control to close that left turn lane to try and keep people from getting caught over there. We'll go in and take a look at it in the next early next week. We're probably 2 weeks out from having most of southbound Quebec open, so that influence of the construction zone will go away. at that point. But so we got about a 2-week period. We'll take a look and see if, as you indicated, there may be an unintended consequence of having closed that left turn lane.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
So, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a couple phone questions to go ahead and keep moving along. Thank you very much for the questions and comments that have come in so far. And since we are hosting this event online and via phone, Roger, do we have any phone or online questions?
And we're going to Ben next. Ben, it sounds like you're in your car. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I also live on Mountain Brush Circle, and I actually have kind of the opposite concern. I've got 2 young children who play on one of the side cul-de-sacs, and we've had multiple run-ins with high-speed, commuters cutting through. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility of increased speed patrols or something of that. I fear that there's potential tragedy in the future.
Okay, thanks, sir. Captain, can you give us an idea of any enforcement measures that can be taken?
Yes, the Quebec area north of Mountain Brush is a strictly prohibited zone there that we focused on several years ago to curb crashes and speed. With this information, I'll see to it that we get the traffic unit out there, and with the warmer season, you're going to see the motorcycles out. So we'll have our motors, and I'll have a traffic section out there.
Okay, hey, thank you very much, Captain, and thank you, Ben, for that question. Roger, do we have another phone question?
We do. Let's hear from Kelly next. Go ahead.
Hi, my question is, this is the 3rd time that the road has been torn up there at that intersection in the past 2 years. So can you answer why that is? Because that seems like a waste of money.
Thank you, ma'am. Dan, I know that there's been some work in that area, but sounds like that's what she's referring to. Can you fill us in on that?
So I think that particularly folks in this room that live right there recognize that intersection's been in bad shape for about 6 or 7 years. And each year we've gone in and made patches to it to try and limp it by, because we did start design of this project about 3 years ago. So that's about normal for a project this size. We do a study, we do pavement design, have to survey it. So we've known for quite a long time we need to redo this intersection, but have had to do work. You've seen crews out there at night patching things up to try and limp it by. The latest real significant project was done in 2016, 2017, when that northbound right to eastbound turn lane was built. There have been a couple other fairly significant concrete repair projects, but we're finally to the point where we're ready to rebuild the whole thing. People ask, can you salvage the old concrete? Well, from an engineering standpoint, we need the whole intersection to act like a continuous pavement. So we actually thickened it up substantially. The new pavement is probably 50% thicker than the old pavement was, which lasted 40 years. The new pavement is reinforced concrete. And then a lot of engineering details go into it. We want to make sure that the joints line up and a lot of other stuff like that. So because of that, and because we do want to build an intersection that we don't have to touch for 40 or 50 years, the decision was made that it'd be most cost effective to remove any of that intersection that was built back in 2016, that right turn lane, and go ahead and incorporate entire new section there. So 12.5 or almost $12.5 million with the design. But the great news is we do expect 40, 50-year life, if not more, out of this intersection.
So, Dan, to kind of just put a cherry on top of that, once this reconstruction, that intersection is done, what is do we have a reasonable expectation that we're not going to need to do any other tear up and maintenance for a decade, 2?
Commissioner, I'm fairly confident. I mean, what we've seen in Highlands Ranch is we're just now reaching the point where roads need to be rebuilt, and they're 40 years old. And this road has even better engineering than those original roads. So So realistic, well more, well longer than 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And there's no room to make it any bigger. So, but there's other roads, other roads in Highlands Ranch that we're going to be having to do this to.
That we are, and we've heard a little bit of that from you before. Well, thank you, ma'am. That was a great question. Thanks, Dan. Roger, do we have another phone question?
We do. One more. Let's hear from Brian next. Go ahead.
Hello, yes. My question is around just like proactive notification. Is there like a website or any kind of email distribution list or anything that we can find out when the road changes are occurring? It seems like every time I drive through there's a different configuration or a different roads closed or a different lane is available for detours. So I'm just wondering if we could increase the signage to be a little more specific, or if there's something more proactive that I could look at before driving through there to kind of know what lane I need to be in to get to where I'm going.
So probably the best resource is to get signed up for text alerts. I see Carolyn in the back of the room. Maybe we can get that information out to everybody. Carolyn, I don't have the exact way to sign up. If you have that, that'd be great.
So if you want to get text messages, every time there's a change, there's a text message that goes out, and you can text to 2100. I'm sorry, 21,000. 21000 is where you text to. And in that text box, you put QLU News for Quebec Lincoln University. So QLU News, and you text that to 21000, and you will get a text message when there's changes.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're going to bring it back in the room. Ladies, please.
Hi. I'm over in Settlers Village too, and I have a question about how close you're getting to the property. I see that they've ripped the sidewalks out and they've even gone into some of the sod, some of the turf. So I'm just wondering, how close are you going to get? How close is the road going to get to the property, and are you going to re-pour the sidewalks?
So the edge of the road, the curb is going to go back in about the same place, and the sidewalk will go back in. We're matching pretty close to back walk, and then we'll restore all that sod. So and you're going to see that sidewalk probably next week. It's going to be pretty soon, so you'll get an image of what it is. We are widening sidewalks in a few locations because the bike paths on Quebec are on street and then they stop before you get to the intersection. This project includes a ramp there and then a wider sidewalk from that ramp all the way to the intersection. That way a bicyclist going through the intersection, they will be able to go up on that wider sidewalk with that ramp and go through the intersection. So it is a safety improvement for the cyclist.
So before we take more questions, Commissioner Layden is attending a funeral service, a viewing for a member of our Douglas County Sheriff's Department that has recently passed away, not in the line of duty, was natural causes, but he volunteered to go down there while Commissioner Thomas and I came up here, but he is joining us on the phone. And Abe, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, buddy. Go for it.
Well, fantastic. Listen, I just wanted to thank all of our citizens in Douglas County for the incredible patience with this project and applaud my commissioner colleagues. I appreciate the work to make sure that this intersection gets done in a timely way that's efficient for those who travel it. My district is Lone Tree and Parker, and, you know, I have 3 kids, 2 at Valor, 1 at Cherry Hills, and we're on that, you know, Lincoln roadway almost every single day back and forth. I know it's a challenge. My comment as a, you know, I think a 15 plus year of Douglas County and certainly of this area is for this intersection, thank you for your patience, but stay off it. You know, if you can avoid Lincoln through at least, you know, mid to late summer, you'll be better off for it. And just for a personal reference, I mean, I'm using 470 right now. to get to the areas that I need to get to, primarily Cherry Hills and Valor. But if you're like me and you're trying to get to your business or your school or church in Highlands Ranch from my district at Lincoln and I-25, I just would highly encourage you to avoid this intersection for now, and know that we are, as my colleagues have shared, we're really trying to incentivize the contractors to finish up as early as possible. I'm pleased that we've moved back that original date several months. Hopefully, we don't want to give a specific completion date because we know those things can shift, but at least until this summer, please take an alternate route. Thank you, George.
You bet. Thank you, Abe, for taking time away to do double duty for us. Ma'am, let's go ahead and take your question or comments.
Hi. I'm also a resident of Settlers Village, and I echo everybody else that's commented on safety issues in there. I guess a question would be, I was actually the one that suggested the van radar. Is there a possibility to put some of those temporary rubber, road stops or speed bumps in there? Is one thing, or the signs that have the flashing lights when you're crossing the street, something like that. And I cross that street back and forth several times a day. I don't know how many times I've almost gotten hit. I've seen car accidents. The speeds through there are ridiculous. If Douglas County wanted to make a few extra bucks, give some tickets out, I mean, that's the place to do it. But it's definitely a safety concern.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Well, Dan and Zeke, we heard a couple things that I know kind of goes between both of your departments in terms of traffic control, traffic mitigation measures in the road, as well as signage. So jump ball for the two of you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I guess I would start by saying that as a proactive measure, what we did is we deployed radar speed feedback signs along Trailhead in Settlers Village and in other neighborhoods near the construction area as well. And the idea behind those signs is to really give people an indication of the speed that they're traveling through people's neighborhoods when they do choose to cut through. And I always remind people that everybody has a radar speed feedback sign. It's called a speedometer. It's right on your dashboard. But often people are distracted. They're not paying attention, and so we try to give them an additional a notice that they're exceeding the speed limit. So we've already kind of taken that proactive approach. I don't know that any of our construction projects have historically ever deployed temporary speed humps, but it's something certainly that we could discuss as an engineering team and discuss with our commissioners as well about whether that's an appropriate mitigation strategy or not during construction.
Yeah, and I can appreciate the signage, about, you're going this speed, slow down, that type of thing. And you guys have done that twice. I don't know what data you're collecting or what you're doing with the data, but the amount of people that go through are probably the same kind of people, and they just ignore it, because there's no consequence.
Sure. So. And those signs are the new ones that we have purchased actually really do a great job at recording both volume and speed. And so we had some pre-construction timeframes where we collected data within Settlers Village, and it had about 300 vehicles a day traversing through it. Well, during construction, at the peak of one of those major construction phases, we had nearly 700 vehicles traversing through the neighborhood. Now, you just on the surface, that seems like quite a bit of traffic. And if you're experiencing that as a resident, it can be, really concerning. However, within our design standards, within Douglas County Engineering roadway and construction standards, we target about 1,500 vehicles per day for local streets. So it's still well below the threshold that we have in our design standards. So we just ask for your patience as we wrap this project up, and hopefully we can get it done as soon as possible so that those traffic volumes can return to more normal for all the residents.
I just hope it doesn't take some tragic accident.
Well, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. We do appreciate the comments, and we'll take those into consideration. We're going to go back to at least one more right here at the podium before we take an online question. Ma'am, please go ahead.
I'm also from Settlers Village, and I'm going to reinforce what she said. The speed through there is ridiculous. I walk up and down Trailhead, and then one day I saw 47 miles an hour. That's not uncommon. So I understand you can't stop them from coming through and the volume. I get that, but the speed has got to be addressed. Somebody's going to get killed. We've got kids in that neighborhood. They jarred out. We've got animals running across. It's going to be a problem. So you can collect all the data you want, but the fact of the matter is the speed is a problem going down Trailhead. So I'm
Okay.
going to reinforce every one of those people that have stood up there and talked about speed. Temporary speed bumps will get their attention. That sign does zero. They look at it and they just keep going.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And Captain, I saw you take down notes. You get that location down? All right. Well, let's let the sheriff's department work on some enforcement measures there, ma'am, because it sounds like it's going beyond the just having the sign up to seeing what we can do with enforcement. Let's give our professionals an opportunity to take care of that. And Roger, did I see that we wanted to take an online question?
We do indeed. John asks, why can't the construction occur at night?
Okay, wow. Well, that's a really good question. And Dan, that's a question we've talked about.
That's an easy question in this room because everybody that is in this room would be significantly impacted. So I'd say a couple things. Number one, it's not very safe for our construction crews. The contractor would not work at night unless he was forced to because injuries go up, a lot of other things. It has a huge impact on the neighborhoods. At night, the sound carries a long ways. Construction traffic, I've studied it on other projects, and you can hear the construction vehicles over a mile away. So the area of influence is huge in Highlands Ranch, and you can't. The people that live there don't have a choice. They can't leave. So if you're driving through the intersection, you can choose to take another route and avoid the construction. But if you live next door to it, you don't have a choice. So you're stuck there. So, you'll see DOTs like state forces do nighttime construction. You'll probably see the county do construction in very rural areas where you won't see noise impacts. But in the urban areas, it's, in my experience, just not very practical and not fair to the folks that live.
Thank you, Roger.
So
I
this
understand
is
we have
Abe.
a phone
I'm
question.
traveling at intersection right now as we speak. And I would just add that I believe that was board direction to accelerate the timetable and actually have some nighttime construction. So Dan, help me understand that if I'm off there, but I think we are asking for some evening work till at least 9 p.m. And I think we got some support from Highlands Ranch Metro District to proceed on that level. Dan, is that right?
Yes, Commissioner, we are allowing the contractor to work that late. He might occasionally work that late, but they start at 7 a.m. and a 12-hour workday is a pretty long day for the workers. So when we really need to, you'll see construction extended to 9 p.m., particularly after we place concrete. We have to saw cut it before it gets too hard, it'll crack. And so it's activities like that. And as small as that might seem, that might buy us a day or two in the overall construction time frame, that extra 1 or 2 hours in the evening.
Thank you, Dan. Just a reminder, anyone who's listening and wants to call in, press *3 on your keypad and you can get into the queue for asking a question. Roger, there's a phone question.
Yes, there is, Commissioner. Let's hear from Lauren. Go ahead.
Hi. This may seem small in the big scope of the entire project from a cost standpoint, but I'm curious as to why the contractor is being incentivized, financially incentivized to finish sooner, as opposed to giving us a more realistic finish date and then disincentivizing if they go beyond that. And I realize there would be some I guess the mitigation for like force majeure and things like that if weather impeded their finishing. But it just seems like, if we're finishing, mid-August versus mid-October, that's, a little over $500,000 added to the cost of the project. So I'm just curious as to why it's done that way. And then in tandem with that, I'm assuming that quality of work and all of those things are monitored so that it's not rushed because there's a financial incentive and quality suffers.
So thanks for that question. So we actually do have both incentive and disincentive in the contract. The original contract, when we bid it, included just the disincentive, which is the same amount, $8,800 a day. So if we worked with the consultant that did the design, evaluated how much time we thought the project would take, recognized that we thought that it would take 10 months of construction, so it bridged over the winter, so it's longer than a 10-month period, but we did shut down the project for 4 months during the winter time. So we were allowing for 10 months of construction time frame under the previous constraints with traffic. So when the commissioners heard the feedback, we listened to folks, made the decision to accelerate the construction, lift some of those restrictions. We also decided we would agree to pay the contractor that same incentive amount to accelerate the project. And so if you consider the math of 32,000 cars per day going through that intersection, $8,800 per day, a lot of money. But if you divide that up between all those drivers, the cost per driver is actually in cents. Pretty frequent for large construction projects to look at both incentive and disincentive. This is really the first time we've done it in Douglas County. And the results we're seeing from the contractor are pretty amazing. I think everybody would agree that's out there. The construction has not just doubled in speed, it's probably tripled in speed. The contractor finished about $3.5 million worth of work last year, and then in the first week or so of March. After the incentive and the change in the timeframes, the contractor has already finished over $4 million worth of work. So in 1 month, the contractor did $4 million worth of work. So clearly, the change in time frame and the incentive is going to get this project done much more timely manner. And then your other question was about quality control. So we do have an inspector on the project, a project manager on the project that's a concrete expert, probably one of the best concrete construction guys in the whole state. So and honestly, I've been out there and looked at it, really pleased with the quality of work, and we are making sure that we get the value for the project.
Thank you, Dan. We're going to move to this side of the room, ma'am. Do you have a question?
Thank you. It sounds like the purpose and need of this project was to reconstruct the failing pavement. That's certainly understandable. But what I don't understand is that not one bit of the messaging we've received on this even references contract. It's all about geometric improvements. As somebody else referenced, this intersection has been through, this is the third construction project since I've lived here in 2008. You know, why no messaging about the concrete, and B, what confidence do we actually have that you're not going to be ripping this all up again to redo the geometric stuff in 5 years?
So probably the biggest constraint is that there is no more right of way to make the road any bigger. We would have to tear down houses, and we're not going to tear down houses in Highlands Ranch to make roads bigger. So the footprint of the road that you see after this project is as big as it can be in that intersection. Now, who knows, 10 years from now, if cars are smaller, if we're able to make lanes narrower, autonomous vehicles will probably influence how we drive 10 years from now. So you'll see changes, but it won't change the pavement. It'll change the way the pavement markings are or the way the signal works. So it's really that footprint is constrained by the right-of-way that we have.
Concrete. I mean, that's the first thing Commissioner Thomas led with, but there's nothing, the word concrete does not appear on this document. It's just, the messaging is very confusing.
Thank you for that information. Ma'am?
Hi, thank you for your time. I just wanted to ask about, historically, Heritage Park has been the event or the location for the 4th of July fireworks. And I wonder what kind of accommodations have been made for that for this year. Are you going to eliminate them or move them to a different location? Or I can't imagine all the traffic that would be coming through that terrible intersection with the construction going on.
Thank you, Dan.
So the good news is that Quebec itself, particularly south of the intersection, all the pavement's going to be done within the next few weeks. So the section of Quebec adjacent to the park will be wide open. By July 4th, the majority of the main pavement will be in place in the intersection. So you're going to see, even though the project right now, we think it'll be done middle of July. The contractor's schedule is the end of July, well before school starts. We're pretty confident he's going to be done middle of July unless we get a horribly wet spring like we had last year. But the impacts to the traffic will be reduced significantly well before that end date, probably a whole month ahead of time, because we have a lot of edge stuff we have to do. This wiring the signal actually takes quite a bit of time. So there's all this extra work that'll happen. But fortunately, the big impacts of the pavement replacement will be done before the July 4th weekend.
And Roger, we have another phone question.
We do. Let's go to Mark, and you're live. Go ahead.
In the original configuration of that intersection, you have two left turn lanes going north and southbound Quebec. And what we've noticed going through there is, and I've even seen a few accidents, that those left turn lanes, when everyone is turning left at the same time, from north and from southbound, that the cars get very, very close. I've seen some cars clip each other on that. Will there be any changes either to, that sounds like not to the size of the intersection, it sounds like you're just replacing concrete, but I wonder if there's something that can be done about how the signals work so that you don't have the cars clipping each other as they're turning left through that intersection.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So first, I would say that during the design process, one of the things that our consultant engineer will do is they'll take what's called a turning template for a large vehicle, and they'll run that turning template on all the movements, both through the intersection, all directions, left and right, so they can start to identify where those potential conflicts that you just described line up. And so, as we've worked with the consultant, hopefully that intersection is now, designed to be a little bit wider in that area where you still could concurrently run both of those double left turns. However, we do use what you're referring to is where, many of you might experience certain times of the day, the left turn arrow goes first in the cycle, and other times of the day, the left turn goes last in the cycle. And what that's called is the lead lag optimization. So depending on the traffic volumes and the splits, we will often use that lead lag optimization to avoid that conflict that you're describing. So we'll certainly take a look at it, but I have faith that our engineering design would facilitate both of those left turns, dual left turns happening at the same time without conflict.
Yes, from January to present day, I'm seeing that there's been 11 crashes in that area. I don't have the accident causation factors of it, but just in that area, I've noted 11 crashes at Quebec and Lincoln University area.
And that's since the first of the year?
Correct, January to present day.
Thank you. And we have an online question now.
We do. This question came from Anthony. He asked, the city of Castle Pines closed Monarch Boulevard at the same time as this construction began, significantly affecting an alternate route. Why not better coordination?
And we happen to have an expert here from Castle Pines. Would you like to go to the podium, sir? Thank you.
Well, I'm Doug Urbanek with City of Castle Pines. It's a good question. The coordination, as you guys know, in Colorado, we pretty much have 3 seasons. We have construction, and then winter. So we were also limited on our season. So we had to work with what we had. It's a $4 million project, taking the whole road out. $2 million of that is water line work. So it was a complicated project. We needed lots of time. So that's the coordination.
All right. Thanks, sir. Appreciate you answering that question for us. We're going to go ahead to the stage right, your left podium here in the hearing room. Sir, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just curious to know what the traffic patterns will look like when you're actually doing the construction and the replacement of concrete in the actual access point of where the roads converge. Because you can see that there's a portion of it that was done in the fall months. Is that what is going to happen, where it's just going to ease its way and then there's going to be junction points of each of those concrete coming together?
So let me make sure I understand. Are you talking about right in the middle of the?
Yeah, right in the middle of the intersection, which is the part that is probably the part that's the most beat up.
And it's the hardest part to build. So there'll be several different phases of construction because we have to do a lot of little pieces. So very important for people to sign up, because that when we start working in the middle of that intersection, that's when the traffic movements are going to change probably every day or two, even faster than it changes today. But you're right to identify. As you can see from the picture, the contractor has avoided getting into the middle because that is a very difficult part.
And I'm sure that will impact the traffic all the more because you have more bodies that are in the traffic area.
Yeah, generally what's going to happen is he'll do like one lane, like a checkerboard of one lane at a time to get that work done in there. So fortunately, it'll happen pretty quick. We'll be able to get it done. We have authorized the use of what we call a higher strength concrete that you can drive on the day after you pour it. As you've noticed, when we place concrete, you got to wait 3 or 4 days before you put traffic back on it. So I think he'll probably do a lot of that intersection in Hyler early. Might tear it out and put it back the same day, and we'll be able to move traffic onto it the next day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that question. Roger, I think we have an online question.
We sure do. Karen asks, why did all 4 sides of the intersection have to be done at the same time?
So I think everybody's reacted fairly negatively to us taking 10 months and going over a year and a half. It would have been 6 years for us to do it a quarter at a time. We looked at several different alternatives, and we did study this project with our consultant for a couple of years in advance to try and figure out the best way to do this. So that's something we'll look at down the road is, do we need to limit every construction project to just the summer? Only 2 months of construction, but then that means a project that we could get done in a year or two might take 7 or 8 years. And I think just the construction fatigue, probably will continue doing business the way we are today, where we do the full project. The other part of that too is the cost would have gone up significantly. When we started this project, you'll remember we started construction after school had started. We were trying to get ahead of the game, start when school let out, but we weren't quite ready. The design wasn't complete. We could have waited a year, but with last year, construction costs were going up 5 to 10% a year. So if we'd waited a year, it'd cost another $600,000. So that was one of the reasons why we went ahead and started last year, even though it wasn't the perfect time to start. So construction inflation, I think, combined with construction fatigue, you're going to see us get these big projects out the door as a comprehensive project and try and get them done just as quickly as we can.
And although Dan just spoke about probably some of the practical applications of trying to piecemeal a project like this as opposed to doing it at all times, we had a conversation of that among the Board of County Commissioners. And I shared a project that we had in Castle Rock when I was still on the Castle Rock Council before coming over to the county that had substantial impact on my district of the town. It affected every single resident of my district. Because of its location right off of I-25. I'm telling you, it made for a horrible, horrible summer that year. that we did that at Plum Creek and Wilcox. But when it was done, and we got it done right around the time that school started, um, it's better to just get it done, go through the difficult period, and then have the improvement afterwards, folks. That is my opinion. I'm always willing to hear somebody else's opinion, but having lived it, that's where I'm at. Roger, I know we have a phone question.
We sure do. Let's hear from Christopher next. Go ahead.
Oh, I was wondering, you know that smaller neighborhood street that was blocked off for a while by barricades south of the intersection? I was wondering when those barricades will be removed and when that street will not be blocked off anymore.
Sir, I apologize, but there's a lot of background noise. Can you please try to?
I cut him off. I believe his question that he had submitted was, will it be rebar in the concrete?
Okay, Dan, you know that question.
So this concrete pavement is reinforced in all directions. So there's different types of rebar and different types of steel reinforcement. Most of Highlands Ranch, the concrete was built 40 years ago before we did that kind of work. And you remember 10 years ago how we did the big project grinding the concrete, making it smoother. This concrete won't buckle like that because we have load transfer steel in it.
Thank you, Dan. Roger, we have another online question.
We do. This came from Lindsay. She asks, will there be a merge lane for those turning left out of Dutch Creek homeowner area onto Lincoln? It has been eliminated at the moment.
So I think our intent with the design is to get the third through lane through the intersection and carry that through lane, basically terminating it where it terminates today at Dutch Creek. So we'll have to go back and look at the design to see to answer that specific question. But I believe, based on my recollection, that our intent is to not change the acceleration lane that comes out of Dutch Creek as it does today. So we'll confirm that, but that's my recollection.
Thank you, Zeke. And we have another online question.
We do. Chan writes, when weekends come, why don't you open up the lanes that are closed off all week? No construction workers, no work being done, but you still keep it one lane of traffic. Keep it to one lane of traffic. On Sunday, it took 15 minutes to go from Fox Creek School south to Quebec.
So a couple different reasons that occurs. Number one, we are working a lot of Saturdays out there. They may not be working with as large a crew, but there is work happening on most Saturdays. Secondly, a lot of times what's closed off is concrete that's curing. So we can't put traffic on it too early, so it'll have to stay closed through the weekend. And the other part is that it is part of that acceleration. We don't want to have to tear something down Saturday night to get it open for Sunday, and then on Sunday night or Monday morning have to set it back up.
Thank you, Dan. Roger, another online question.
Yes, ma'am. Let's hear from Dalton. He writes, are we actively adjusting streetlight timing on a weekly or sooner basis on the intersection to adjust for the constant lane changes that can cause relief to traffic?
So that's certainly a great question, and one that we get a lot during construction. I think the challenge with this particular project is that the contractor is having such different phasing options throughout the day. So as a traffic engineering department, we do our best to try to keep up with that, but it's just unrealistic for us to try to change the signal timing on a daily or an hourly basis. Certainly on a weekly basis, we look at how we can adjust timing to better accommodate various phases. And I mentioned earlier that we went to a much longer cycle length, that 180-second cycle. That's going to return to more normal once the project is open. We'll go back to 135 or 140-second cycle. But for the time being, the 3 minutes is really what we found is the sweet spot.
Thank you, Zeke. And another online question.
All right. Sean writes, so I heard someone mention to avoid the intersection. Why not just completely shut down the intersection over a weekend to perform the work instead of the constant lane shifts and confusion?
So we feel like it's important to keep some traffic flowing through the intersection. Plus, we need, it's such a critical location. We need the ability for emergency vehicles to make it through the intersection. So even though traffic might be backed up, emergency vehicles can, if they have to, make it through the intersection during the weekends. Particularly as we move into summer months, access to the park is significant. I think it would have just been such a huge impact to close the intersection that I think we really have found what I believe is the best way to approach this project. Keep it open minimally and get the work done as fast as we can.
Thank you, Dan, very much. Abe, it sounds like you're joining us again. Commissioner Layden, go ahead. Well, let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and start the wrap up. Folks, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for joining us. I really hope we have demonstrated that a lot of thought went into this project. We do have experts that are on this that have thought through many of the issues. I myself, though, really appreciate some of the issues you brought forward that probably we did not consider, and it's part of the chaos that is American life. Anytime you deal with a large intersection like this, it's a huge challenge. But we had a couple of comments about our communication. I'll tell you what, I think the commissioners will own those because we fully intended to do everything we could to prepare everybody, and we're doing everything we can to keep you updated as this project goes on. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight and on the phone and online. We usually do these town halls in Castle Rock, but we brought it up here to Highlands Ranch to make it more convenient for you. In order to do that, we had to have a lot of staff up here. So I saw the county manager here earlier. He's usually not here. He texted me that there were over 1,000 people online. We've got several people here from our communications department. We've got even Janet Herman. Janet, why don't you stand up? Janet is actually the director of the Public Works Department. So the people that have been answering the questions work for Janet. Janet's the kind of leader that lets her people do what they need to do, but she's here supporting them. So Janet, thank you, because you and your staff have answered a lot of questions. We have tried to be very responsive. So when people email me personally at the office, I email them back. I've spoken to, I bet, 50 or 60 people about this project, because I want you to know I'm as frustrated as you are. I have missed meetings. I've been late for meetings, but I understand this is going to be a much better project, a much better intersection. When it's done, it's going to be made with better products. I also want to thank the Sheriff's Department for being here. There's a bureau chief here. Captain McMillan is here. I have seen, like you have, patrol cars from the Sheriff's Department there, slowing people down, trying to keep it as safe as everybody can make it. So thank you, everybody.
And so let's go ahead and hear from Commissioner Layden. Abe, go ahead.
Thank you, George. And just to round it out, again, live on the scene, went from the services to my daughter's senior tennis night at Valor. And I just have to say, optimistically, engineering staff is doing great. These are brand new, beautiful roads that are going to really serve the citizens. And it's an honor, I know, for all of us to be in service to each of you as citizens of Douglas County. God bless you and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you for being here. We'll be around if you have any questions you'd like to talk to us individually, and God bless.
All right. Thank you on behalf of Douglas County. Thank you for joining us this evening. If we didn't get to your question, we invite you to submit feedback at douglas.co.us/town hall. We hope you had a good evening and will join us again for a future town hall. Good night.